But if you put your hope in the Iranian people, that eventually it is them that is going to bring about change, and given that young, educated, connected populace, I am hopeful that they will bring about. I certainly hope in the meanwhile there is no military attack on Iran, no terrorist attack on Iran, because either one of the two will strengthen the hands of the Islamic Republic, because no matter what, in any country, when there is an external threat, you sort of rally around the government, how bad it may be. So I hope that neither of those two things happen. And there are people, and I don't want to name, you can guess, that they say, look, a military attack, maybe 400,000, 500,000 people in Iran would die, but we will get rid of these guys. And who are the people who are so loose with the lives of the people in Iran? They live in Paris, they live in London, they live in Beverly Hills, they live in New York, they live in Washington. And they say, so somebody dies, but we get rid of these people. So I'm not in that camp.
Obviously, if, there's also the threat of sanctions. There are sanctions looming on November 4th. Are you also against sanctions to bring about change, or do you think sanctions can actually empower?
So I'm hoping, that there is a smart sanction, right? So which shouldn't be that difficult, because Iran's economy, 2/3 or more of it, is controlled by either the supreme leader, or by IRGC, or by organization connected with IRGC, or Ostan Quds, or all the religious foundations. Nobody knows where they get their money. They don't pay any taxes. They don't. They're not responsive to any kind of a scrutiny. When they control so much of the economy, it shouldn't be that difficult for the U.S. to put the pressure laser-like on that segment and make sure that the people, as much as possible, you can never put a sanction on a country without some kind of an effect on people. But I wish that the sanctions would be more focused. Give you an example of a silly sanction. I don't know whether you followed the World Cup, and Nike wouldn't give shoes to Iranian athlete. How is that going to affect the government? That's just plain stupid, right? So I'm hoping that U.S. will provide some clarity for the companies, that where to insist on sanctions and where not to add to the misery of the Iranian people. To be honest, I cannot sit in Los Angeles having access to food, having access to medicine, having access to stable prices, and say, let them suffer. They need to suffer in order for the things to get better. So sanctions for me is a moral dilemma. On one end, I see the necessity of putting pressure on the government of Iran. And on the other hand, I think U.S. needs to do a better job of discerning what is pressure on the government and what is unnecessary and useless pressure on the people.
You've been you were involved with NASA for over 30 years, and you even have a star named after your name because of your achievements and successes.
An asteroid.
Sorry,
yeah,
an asteroid, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, leave it to me to say a star, because you are an Iranian star.
Thank you.
Anyway, you've been involved in big, massive projects, space exploration. At this time, managing it, running it, planning it, now that Iran is facing so many simultaneous crises at the same time, from environment, economy, social, name it, how do you see the way forward?
Sometimes I get comments on my sites that say your background is in space why do you comment on, water crisis, economy, or politics and all that? So all these large complex projects, as diverse and different fields that they may be, they have something in common. So for example, when we land on Mars, there are probably 20, 30 specialties that we need to find the best who is this deep in computer science, this deep in structural engineering, this deep in electrical engineering, and so forth. And so the way to success is that at every area where it requires deep expertise, you have them. But that's not enough. Because these complex projects, they act as a system, and if you do not know how the system behaves, you may change something in this area, and it would have a reaction in another part of the system that you did not intend to happen, but you inadvertently made it happen because you don't have any systems engineering or systems management expertise. So you take a look at water crisis. Okay, water has this complex relationship with economy, with the environment, with urban development, and so somebody needs to understand this complex couplings and make sure that inadvertently they don't change something that has a adverse reaction somewhere else. And then, as I said, to have the best experts in each of the fields. Well, what's happening in Iran? Neither is true. They don't understand systems management. They don't understand systems engineering. They don't understand complexity of the systems. So put that aside. Then in each of the expertise, it is, UK, US, when you interview for an expert, okay, you don't ask them what religion they are, and it is basically, can you do the job? If you can do the job, then you're hired. You're the best, we're going to hire you. There is, are you, in Farsi, they say mu'min.
Are you faithful?
Are you faithful? Are you a man of faith? Or, do you know Quran? Are you committed to Jamhuri Islami? Well, a faithful person necessarily is not an expert. And conversely, an expert need not necessarily be a man of religion. All he needs to do is know how to do the best job. So as a result, they don't hire the right people, and they don't know how to manage them and manage the system. Well, this is a recipe for disaster. The only reason that we succeeded in what we did is that if we interviewed people, to hire, it was just purely based on their knowledge, nothing else. And then, of course, the discipline of system management and system engineering is well understood, in type of work that we do. Unfortunately, both are missing. And once in a while, there is this gentleman, and in fact, I think he taught in Imperial College here for a while. Young fellow, brilliant, 37, 38 years old. Kaveh Madani. And they somehow convinced him to go back, and he did. And in 6 or 7 months, he began to make some improvement. And of course, they saw this thing against their own interest, and they put a label on him that you are spy for UK, and he left. So and if I take a look at the energy, knowledge, and workforce of Iranians who have left Iran, whether they are in Silicon Valley, okay, or different fields. I look at America and I see American Jewish people, how they contribute to Israel. American Chinese, how they contribute back in China. American Indians, how they contribute to India. And yet Iran, with one of the most successful American immigrant community. Just imagine that if we unleash all of this talent back in Iran, and I have no doubt that if there comes a time when there is a secular government there, when they feel safe, I'm not saying that there will be a mass migration back in Iran. Some indeed might go back, and the rest will give willingly their knowledge, their consulting, and put that and the young Iranian, educated, bright populace in Iran. And that's a recipe for explosive growth. And I think if that day comes, where all these brain trust in the U.S., Iranian Americans, British Iranians, or Iranians everywhere else can contribute, I think Iran would face a very bright future, because we are naturally well off, right? We have the fourth largest oil reserves. We have the second largest gas reserves. More than anything, it is the human capital, which is so bright, educated, connected, and there is no reason for that country not to reach economic prosperity. And now superimpose into that as all the help that we can get. Can you imagine what that potential would be? And we just have to be hopeful that a day will come where people can go back.
But do you have any political ambitions yourself? I mean, you have run teams.
Yeah.
And you are mentoring a lot of Iranians now. You have left NASA, so you don't have a full-time job. Is this something you have thought about?
I relish mentoring. Okay, I'm too old. First of all, there are a lot of young, qualified Iranians who, can pick up the mantle. And I think if I am effective, it is so long as people know I don't have any personal ambition. I don't want to be in a cabinet. I don't want to be in a position of leadership. I don't seek any of those. I've had a full, satisfying career in NASA. And right now, I love working with the young people and serving as a coach and mentor. But I have no personal ambition. And I think the moment I slipped into that, then I become one of the crowds, and people say, well, he says what he says because he wants such and such. And so no, I don't have any personal ambitions that way.
Do you dream of Iran? Are you more optimistic about going back now than you were before?
Yeah, all the beautiful places in the world, and you can imagine beautiful tropical islands and metropolitan, south of France, Italy, wherever. If tomorrow they give me, it's like you have a week of vacation, where would you go? Undoubtedly would be Iran. Okay, I yearn to go back in Iran. It's not safe. I would be foolish, I think, at this point, given how many people they have arrested, particularly dual citizens, and many of them not as critical of the government as as I have been. So yes, I would love to go back to Iran, and I hope that it's not that far away.
Are you hopeful more today than 2009?
Oh yes, yeah. And fortunately, for a perverse reason, is that the country is in much worse shape than it is. I see some people go to Iran, and they come back and they say, there's nothing wrong with Iran. I see Lamborghinis and Maseratis and Porsches, and I see these real estate in north of Tehran going at the prices that they would go in New York City, in Manhattan, and I see parks, and they see the the glitter, the superficial glitter, and given that they're back there for 2 weeks, that's all they see, but they don't sense the pain that the country is in. So the reason that I'm more optimistic, again, for perverse way, is that the country is in a worse shape than even 10 years ago.
And even those who actually would go back and talk about Lamborghinis and their parties, they are concerned as well. There's this feeling, although they were very disconnected to the society, to the people on the street, now they have become more aware and are fearful.
Yeah, and so all the elements have to come together. All segments of the society, as you suggest, need to feel the pain and then have the wisdom to come together. We are not we're looking at a formidable opponents. People keeps talking about in Farsi Akhundai Ahmaq, the foolish, stupid mullahs. What's foolish about them? If they were foolish and stupid, they wouldn't have ruled for 40 years. In their own devilish way, they're pretty smart. And so, as far as I can see, they haven't bought their ticket and packed their suitcases ready to leave Iran. So you need to have a strategy, okay? And what I see lacking in some of the oppositions that I have observed and chatted with is that there is no strategy.
What is the first step for the strategy that you're talking about?
It undoubtedly is a national unity. So even first of all, on the outside, okay, I did an interview and where I said, this government needs to go. And somebody came and wrote a comment saying, it's only possible, I'm not going to name names, it's only possible if we choose A. Nothing else will work, right? So long that we insist on my way, the mullahs are going to be around. Okay, so there has to be a coming together and agreeing on the principles. Eventually, if these guys go, I think we have to leave it to the will of the people, saying there is A, B, and C, and which one of them do you prefer to be the next form of the government? And trust the people. We can't go in there saying that I want these people to go and absolutely need to be replaced by B, but not by A and C. Not gonna work. So, the other one, even in Iran, so this is for the outside, and in Iran, all the protests that you're talking about, they are done by different factions of the society. They are the truck drivers. They are the bazaris. There is the university segment. All acting out of frustration, but independent and uncoordinated. So whoever the leader is, and I think the movement does need a moral authority to bring these people together and make sure that they act in unison outside the country and inside the country. And but unfortunately, as you know, the characteristics of this kind of dictatorship in Iran is that you eliminate or arrest, particularly in Iran, within Iran, all the would-be leaders, right? And so we need to see somebody emerge with the wisdom of bringing the people together, okay, and to do something beyond talking, to come up with a plan and a strategy. I've often said we have had 40 years of political experts sitting in Paris cafes, drinking double espressos, and talking about the philosophy of revolution. None of these guys has ever done anything, and started with a plan and see it through, right? So they need also to bring within their group people who have managed projects, but there needs to be a coming of the people together.
My last question, in the past 2 weeks, more than 16, 17 days, the bus drivers have been on strike in Iran. The teachers, the shopkeepers, they've all come together. And on the streets in Iran, and we have seen the women in Iran take off their
So
hijab.
the beginning of that coalition.
What is your message to them, and what is it that
you are on the right track? The moment that your own cause is not the only cause, but you make it a national cause, and you join with the truck drivers who have their own grievances, which is different from your grievance, okay? But you have an ultimate goal that it all comes together, okay? A government that cares for you, right? I think if we are beginning to see this coalescing of the different forces, then I think we're beginning to see, hopefully, the path to success.